Our next guest
Isaac
is also a senior. His name is not Noah. His name is not Nate. His name is Nea. Give it up for Nea!
So I've got some new material tonight. Yeah, this is Cotton's probably no, it's a good conversation starter. I feel because people ask me like it's called a Guess sweater. That's the brand. And so people ask me, "Hey, Nea, what are you wearing?" And I'll be like, "Guess." And it's also a really good conversation ender. So I'm a firm believer in the notion that anything is possible, and I think I first realized this when I passed the language requirement last term. So basically, our first assignment, the very first day of class, was to read the syllabus. I opened up the syllabus document on Moodle, and I realized I couldn't read it at all, so I just Google Translate, copy and pasted it, translated it. And the very first thing when I Google Translated it, it said, you can't use Google Translate. So I realized that once I got around to the midterm, that I was so terribly bad at Spanish that once I got my midterm back, like there was so much red ink on the midterm that you could actually tell that the red pen started to fade. Like I'm halfway through the second page. And then the third page, though, was a bright red pen. She actually used 2 red pens. And then not only that, but she wrote on the top of the front page, "See me," but she started to say "see me" in Spanish, but then she only got like a few letters through, and she realized that would be futile. She crossed it out and wrote it in English instead. So a lot of people in my class realized that I was really bad at Spanish, and but they tried to be subtle about it. So once it got around time for the oral exam, my partner emailed me. I was the last one for someone to sign up with, by the way. But my partner emailed me and said, "Hey, Nea, we should practice for the oral exam several times." And I emailed her back saying, "I will meet with you once." But I think that once I finished the oral exam, I realized that this is one of those rare instances when I actually think I would have gotten a higher score had I not spoken. And then my professor asked me about it afterwards, and about what I was saying. I just tried to say that I was speaking like Yoda. Once my grade came around, like I scrunched the class. Once my grade came around, and I needed to pass this class. I had my roommates look at my transcript first. I couldn't check the hub, and so it turns out that it was kind of like the ending of Mice and Men. So like I was standing there, just totally hopeful, and my roommates were there and just giving me a picturesque image of what things could be. Across the river, talking about rabbits, farms, and well, it turns out I did pass. But I'd like to say that usually if someone doesn't pass a class, like if they fail, you don't call them a bad person. Usually. But I think the one exception to this rule is if they're taking a course on ethics. I knew got an F in an ethics course, like by definition, like they're a bad person. And I think that maybe that's the reason that a lot of people are afraid of taking ethics, because they might find out that they are a bad person. So like if you get I feel like if you get like a C- or below in ethics, like you should have to have like an asterisk on your transcript, or they should at least have to like send a note to like the police department or something. But I actually feel that ethics is really important. I feel that they should have like a sequence of ethics. So they should start off really easy, you know, and try to first of all try to weed out like the serial killers. So let's like have like ethics 101, and what ethics 101 would be really easy. to try to make people comfortable with the subject. So like, one of the questions on an Ethics 101 exam might be, you're in charge of a rail track system on which there is a runaway train that you cannot stop. Coming up in front of the train, the track splits into two, and you have to decide to send the train left or right. However, everyone you know and love is tied to the tracks on the left. Well, one person is tied to the tracks on the right, that person being Hitler. Which do you choose? So I'm just looking forward to the moment when our historians go back to like some like classical ethical text and just find out that all the answers were in the back of the book all over. Another aspect of philosophy, I've taken a lot of philosophy classes here. I think I've taken 6 now. And another aspect that I think is really important that we need to start emphasizing is experimental ethics and experimental philosophy. So like experimental logic, for instance. So what experimental logic would entail is that there would be like a 2-credit lab section, and you'd meet and you'd try to resolve paradoxes by actually reenacting them. So like, for instance, the barber paradox, if you're not familiar with that, it goes like this. There's a town that, the barber is a man in town who shaves all those and only those men in town who do not shave themselves. Who shaves the barber? So what an ethics lab would do is they'd reconstruct this town, and they would hire a barber and a bunch of men in town to be the citizens, and they try to physically see if it's possible for this situation to exist. Or similarly, you'd have this paradox where the question, if there's a tree in a forest and it falls, does it make and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I feel that they would, during lab, they would just put some type of audio level meter next to a tree that's about to fall, and then run. And then they'd record the sound just very suspiciously and see if it actually made a sound. Or the paradox, the liar paradox, which goes a little bit like this. This sentence is false. And this causes a lot of problems in philosophy because saying this sentence is false is both true and false, as it would seem. So I think that what they would do to resolve this is that they would have someone say that sentence, this sentence is false, and they'd perform a polygraph. They'd try to determine whether or not that's actually true. So I've realized that in the history of the world, that there have been so many monumental discoveries that have happened by mere accident. And people have just been just utterly careless with regard to all of the fame. So like the invention of penicillin, discovery of penicillin, and artificial sweetener, even the chocolate chip cookie, the potato chip, all of those things. And it just happened from mere carelessness, basically, or on accident. And I think I could use this to my advantage, like when applying to graduate school, like this notion. So I would just say on my resume, yeah, I'm really clumsy. I make a lot of mistakes, I'm also really forgetful. Sometimes I just leave things out in lab over the weekend. I have to check out until Monday. I also really don't follow instructions very well. So I think they're advertising soap wrong. Because whenever you see like a bottle of soap, it usually has, like flowers or like cushions or, graceful birds flying around. But soap is like probably the single most destructive material that's ever been invented. Like every time you wash your hands, you're literally making millions upon millions of bacteria die a miserable death. Like literally, you're basically dissecting them alive. And the ones that are actually able to escape the soap just die by drowning. So I think if they wanted to be realistic, they would advertise soap with like flames or like the devil. So I realized that is the only reason that the Liberty Bell has become like a national symbol. Is that just because it was made so shittily? like when you think about it, it had a crack down the middle, and then for some reason that has become some national symbol. I guess the same applies to like Carlton, like with Crack House. But, like, I wonder if like people had thought that maybe if they started making things really shittily, maybe their product might become a national symbol as well. So like I wonder if like the Gateway Arch, for instance, just was made really, really shittily and just a crack just formed right down the middle. So I think that the very first person to coin the term wardrobe malfunction was C.S. Lewis. I had 5 siblings, 4 of whom were older than me. And when I was like young, like 4 or 5 years old, I was really easily manipulated. So like one of the little tricks that they taught me to do was to answer the phone. And they gave me this little message of what to say when I answered the phone, regardless of who was calling. And that was, "Hello, my name is Naya, and I am going to kill you." I'm basically a toddler, like 4 years old. Like I probably am still running around in diapers. And in my super high-pitched 4-year-old voice, in complete monotone, I'd answer the phone to whoever was calling. "Hello, my name is Naya, and I am going to kill you." But I thought that was pretty normal. I was a pretty kid. Something that's not normal. Goldfish in our salad lines. I don't really understand that at all. Like, if you went to a restaurant, I feel that it just would never be appropriate to order goldfish on a salad. Like you can never say like, "Yeah, I'll order the salad. Can you keep it light on the goldfish thing?" Actually, just give me a side of goldfish. Wait, what is this? What do you mean you don't have goldfish? Are there any ladies in the crowd? That joke is for you. Just like goldfish, I also smile back. Sometimes when I'm bored, I like to play the game Never Have I Ever by myself. And I never lose. And, maybe it's just because I've never done anything. I'm not sure. But basically, I've never done anything interesting enough that would be mentioned in Never Have I Ever, I feel. So that whenever you're playing Never Have I Ever, there's always that person, I feel, who says, "Hey guys, let's turn it to PG-13. And I hate when people make it PG-13 because my contribution is usually something like, "Never have I ever held hands with a girl." Rather than turn the knob up to PG-13 though, like I would much rather turn it down to G. So like a G-rated Never Have I Ever, I think would put me on an equal playing field. So like Never Have I Ever petted a fluffy sheep in a pasture. Never have I ever gotten cooties. Or never have I ever lost a game of peekaboo. Speaking of never have I ever, has anyone here ever been sexiled by the girl you had a crush on? Yeah, so I wanted to go on a skew date fall term sophomore year with this girl. And but I found out that she actually had a different skew day, and I was kind of bummed out. But I ended up hanging out with a friend that night instead, and we had fun. But later that night, she texted me. This girl texted me and my roommate if she could have the room, our room, which is not a normal thing. Before I could muster a response, I was just completely baffled. But before I could muster a response, my roommate just instantly texted her, "Sure." You stop based on you, should do that. He had a girlfriend at the time, so he didn't even sleep in the room, so like it didn't affect him at all.
My fucking room.
And she goes back to my room with her screw dick, who is from St. Olaf, by the way. He doesn't even go here. And they ended up playing strip poker with each other. And I guess I gotta say, I don't know how drunk the two of them would have had to have been in order to think that a game of strip poker would have been a good idea. But it wasn't just a game of strip poker. It was a two-person game of strip poker. Like, I gotta say, like, wow, that guy really has, like, a lot of game, I guess. But once they played their two-person game of strip poker for a while, and at some point, the thought that crept into their minds was, "Oh, look, a bed." And then when I come back to the room later that night, the girl had left and gone back to her own room. But the guy was still there. He was still in my bed. I didn't really know what to do. Like, I didn't know how to respond. Like, this isn't a type of situation that you, like, practice in your head before. So I just said, oh, hey. I went to my roommate's bed. But, and I felt really bad the next day because I told this girl, like, again, I had a crush on. I told her to do my sheets. And I felt really bad that I had wronged her by making her do my sheets, so I bought her Friday flowers. Thanks, everyone.